Hi there. In this Unity tutorial, I will show you how to use animations in conjunction with events so that we can trigger simple looping animations like this one to make things like our crystal seem to kind of hover magically. Okay, so the first step is that I've made inside my assets folder a folder called animations. I'm going to right click and create, and then I'm going to create an animation. I'll just call this hover, and I'm going to drag that hover animation to the crystal object that I want it to happen on. So what that did, incidentally, is that it made a animation controller, which is another type of asset that is necessary to make the animation happen. It also applied that animation controller to our game object as a component. So the controller is this one that it made, and then it has a couple of settings. But where we're going to get most of our work done is in the animation, the one we made. So if you single click on it, there is a loop function. And I'm going to say yes to that because I want this one to loop. Not everything would, but in this case, it's just going to go up and down forever. If you double click on it, it opens up a timeline. And those of you who have worked in Adobe After Effects will recognize this. It's just a floating window, but I sometimes will put it as an extra tab behind the project pane, and so this timeline counts seconds across from left to right, and it has properties here. If you make sure to click the object that has the animation on it, so in this case the crystal, then you can click add property, and you can animate any property that's in a component on the object. So I'm going to animate something in its transform, so I'll twirl this open, and I want to animate its position. So I will hit plus, and that adds the position to the timeline, and it puts what are called keyframes on the timeline. And anyone who's worked in After Effects or perhaps Adobe Premiere animating effects will sort of recognize this. If you use your scroll wheel, you can zoom out to get to more time on the timeline. I think I'm going to drag this animation out to about 2 seconds. And then I'm going to twirl this open. So it's getting the position from what I have the position set in the game world, So it starts on the Y at nearly 0.65, it's 0.646 or whatever. So I'm going to go to the next keyframe, and you can do that by hitting the next keyframe button here. And then I can just raise it up a little bit. I can do it here, or I can do it here in the scene window, whatever you prefer. And then I'm going to jump out to, I guess, 4 seconds, just to try to make this all even. And then here I'm going to type back in the original because I'm trying to make a looping animation. And you can preview it here to see if you kind of buy it. And then you've got an animation applied to the object. It should function, as simple as that. The trick now is that we could potentially trigger this animation through some of the interactions that we're already used to. So up until now, what we've been doing in our game is when we press this button, it makes this crystal appear. But maybe it would be, maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I want the crystal to always be active, always be visible, but when I press the button, it starts animating, let's just say. So in that case, in our hover entered here, instead of crystal game object set active, we would do crystal, and then we could address the animator. I'm just going to use the strategy we've been used to where we choose whether the whole thing is enabled or not. So the animator.enabled will be checked yes, and that means back here on the crystal, animator should be checked no. So that means from the beginning this thing will be in the game, but it won't be moving until we press the button. There is a way to set a default state for the animation to not yet be played and then call play. But in our case, with a simple looping animation like this, I think this is a reasonable way of handling it. So let's check it out. There is our not moving crystal. We press our button, and there's our moving crystal. So that's how you use the same events, interactable events we're used to get animations happening in your game.